to sit there and listen to all that yap, yap, yap. Oh, Brad and Angelina, text me. The never-ending fountain of fat, stupid trivia. I deserve a
Pull to open.
pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
Make it up as I go along. But trust me, I've got history.
For better or for worse.
Here come the drums.
So here it comes, the sound of drums. Here come the drums, here come the drums.
Dun 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 dun. Hello and welcome to Pull to Open, an ongoing quest to watch all of Doctor Who, all of it, the entire television program in random order. I'm Pete Paschal. And I'm Chris Taylor, and we're a couple of journalists, a couple of Who fans, a couple of very excited Who fans today because we are coming to you from Sunday, October the 23rd, at least a week in your past, and it's Regeneration Day. Happy Regeneration Day, Pete.
Happy Regeneration Day to you, Chris.
Yeah, it seems to come earlier every year or every 3 or 4 years. I was just, I'm excited about The Power of the Doctor at the screening later today, and I'm excited to talk about our episode today on Pull to Open. But Pete, where have we been?
Well, we've been all over the place. We've been yo-yoing between old Who and new Who in the last few weeks. So previously on Pull to Open, we were at a couple of Jodie Whittaker Series 11 episodes, Rosa and the Witchfinders. We did those back to back.
That's right.
Apparently the randomizer wanted us to get our fix of the Whittaker era before it's over.
Before it ends,
happening today for us.
Yeah.
A week ago for everyone listening, or perhaps even later. And then it rocketed us back into the classic series. We were all the way back to a Troughton era missing episode, Fury from the Deep. A little bit less missing than it used to be because there's the animation that's been around for the past couple of years. So we were able to take that in. And then we leapt forward in time to a notorious episode by the name of Time Flight.
That's right.
And
from missing episode to missing Concord.
Exactly. But that was a great one for us. I mean, we also had a special guest that week, Christopher Burgess from Radio Free Skaro. Took some time to help us with a little commentary there. So thanks again, Chris.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Chris. That was really cool to nerd out about that. Thoroughly enjoyed that episode, and looking forward to talking about what we've got coming up, which is...
it's taken us all the way back into New Who. Thank you, Randomizer. Thanks to Chris's spin of the Randomizer, actually. And we are at the 2006 Christmas special, The Runaway Bride. Which
Very nice, yes.
Just pure coincidence, by the way, that my Halloween costume this year, happy Halloween, everyone, by the way, because I know it's 2 days for people listening, for most of you, is David Tennant. And it's one of the Doctors I have never been as Halloween. I've done Davison way back in the day when I was like a kid. I've done Matt Smith. And I've done Tom Baker because everyone's done Tom Baker.
Right.
Exactly. But I've never done Tennant. Probably because I have a pinstripe suit, but I didn't have the rest of it, right? I feel like the brown coat is a bit of an investment. And I finally found this kind of fun cosplay cheap one on eBay, which is pretty close. And so...
Did it advertise itself as a Tennant coat on eBay? Is that...
No, it didn't. It just kind of like a sort of a long raincoat. But one of the reviews said, pretty good for that Doctor Who look. And I was like, okay.
Interesting.
This is my thing. But it puts my my sonic screwdriver that I've had forever, I guess, whenever this came out, 2006 or so. And
very, very appropriate for The Runaway Bride, which is a very sonic-heavy episode.
Yes. So maybe that's the connection here.
It is,
because we were the original sonic screwdriver appearance in Fury from the Deep, and boom, here we are.
Right, and then we were sonicless, very sonicless in Time Flight. Its absence was really notable, and here it's back, and how it's back.
But yes, we should talk briefly about the upcoming regeneration tonight. Very excited to see what happens. We don't know. We have a few theories. We're not going to sound too stupid by outlining them.
A week after everyone knows.
I know, exactly. I'm just going
It's funny
to...
because they did the press screening that they specifically didn't do the regeneration scene.
Right.
So nobody outside of the the inner circle really knows still in the world. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is important to note that here on Sunday, October the 23rd at 10:02 a.m. San Francisco time, Pete's a little bit ahead of me on the East Coast. We're waiting for the show to screen at 8 p.m. your time. Is that correct?
That is correct. BBC
and
America.
we don't. All I will say about the regeneration is maybe, in the words of Luke Skywalker, this is not going to go the way that we think. But we'll see.
Yes.
We'll see.
I'd say the moment has been over prepared for.
Yes, it really has. My goodness. In so many ways, so many directions. And we know that Tennant and Donna are coming back. Tennant and Donna.
Right.
We sort of mix up the names of the actors and the names of the characters, but they're coming back. So it's such a great time to be watching The Runaway Bride. It feels so right.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. First taste of Tennant and Tate. But before that, we need to enter the pull to open feedback loop. Here we are in the feedback loop. And normally we talk about reviews, and we will in a minute. But I also kind of wanted to talk a little bit about our rankings, at least according to Chartable, and where people in the world are enjoying the podcast, which is all over the world. But in particular, I want to shout out to our fans in the Netherlands. Who seem to be some of our most dedicated ones. We always rise to close to the top of the charts there for TV reviews when we upload something. So thank you in Dutch. I should probably have checked how to say thank you in Dutch before
They are so good at English. They're so good at English.
Aren't they?
Okay. Yes. But it's fantastic. Yeah, please do leave us a review, folks in the Netherlands. Perhaps with a little Netherlands flag next to it, just so we know you're representing. It's very exciting that we've been picked up there. We also seem to be hot in the UK.
I mean, not unexpected. And in particular, one of our recent episodes, The Fury from the Deep, maybe because we talked a lot about North Sea gas.
That could be it. Yeah, it's kind of a, people are concerned about the price of gas at the moment, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So we always big shout out to our fans in Great Britain.
Yes. Shout out to anyone who was looking for a podcast on North Sea gas and came across Fury from the Deep. I don't know how helpful we were, but hope you enjoyed the weed.
Yes, always good to get some weed into your.
Yeah, maybe that's why we're a big deal in the Netherlands. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Now I'm putting this all together. So, perhaps related, also New Zealand. Thank you very much for our great fans there. We're rising in the charts, and in particular, I guess the Witchfinders was a big deal back there. I don't know if witch trials were ever a thing in New Zealand, but maybe they're just fascinated by them being part of the Commonwealth.
Yes, please write in, New Zealand listeners, and let us know why the Witchfinders might be a big deal there. Are there lots of mud creatures in New Zealand, maybe? Is that it? Is it the Morax?
They did film Lord of the Rings there, right?
They did.
The Uruk-hai were kind of like mud creatures in a sense.
That's
I guess
an interesting connection. Yeah, you might have nailed it.
There it is. Boom. But all that this randomizer has trained me to find connections everywhere.
It really is. It's pattern matching training. We are pattern matching creatures, so this is especially interesting.
So thanks everybody worldwide. We will continue to give you podcasts, whether you like it or not. Wow, I just turned into Colin Baker there for a second. But no, thanks. Really, it's truly great. Again, as Chris said, if you can leave a review, if you're enjoying the podcast, we'd really appreciate it. Do you know why that is, Chris? Why reviews are so important?
Reviews help us get seen in more places and surface us in the search results, so that when you're searching for a Doctor Who podcast, you'll come across Pull to Open more quickly.
Exactly. And the best place to leave reviews is the Apple Podcasts app. We realize not everyone listens on Apple Podcasts, but if you have an iPhone or a Mac, please head on over there and leave a review. If you don't have one of those things, perhaps a friend does.
Yeah.
And otherwise, you could catch us on any of our other platforms. We're on YouTube, of course, at youtube.com/pull-to-open, though someday when we reverse time, we'll be at pull-to-open.com/YouTube.
That's right, YouTube. How do you like it now?
Or TikTok at pull-to-open, or Twitter and Instagram at pull-to-open63. Drop us a line there, or leave some comments, and we'd love to chat with you.
And if you don't have an iPhone, and because we do love the reviews on Apple Podcasts, that does seem to be the most effective service. The Runaway Bride reminded us that people used to just borrow each other's cell phones.
Right.
So maybe just walk up to someone in the street who's got an iPhone and be like, "Hey, do you mind? I just need to leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts. You good with that?" Might make a new friend. Who knows?
Yeah. Might make a new friend with the policeman who takes you away and throws you in the slammer for using someone's iPhone.
It will certainly be a story, and certainly the fact that you were arrested for trying to review Pull to Open would be huge for us. I'm thinking major Streisand effect for that. So
we dedicate an episode to that for sure. So please, go do it. No, I'm not endorsing anyone take anyone's iPhone, but it could happen.
Yeah, we're not saying you should do it, but we're also not really saying that you shouldn't.
Exactly.
Just gonna say that. Leave that there, and see what happens. But thanks, iPhone stealers.
We also want to express gratitude to everyone who has been leaving reviews. Thank you so much. And I'd love to read out one of our latest ones here, which is actually, full disclosure, this is actually written by my friend Steve, who I recently made him aware of the podcast. But Steve's a great guy. We go back. He's a huge Doctor Who nerd, just like everyone. Doing this podcast and perhaps listening. Anyway, and he writes this. The title is Deep Cuts Served Randomly. I'll admit to bias here, as one of the hosts is an old friend, but Pull to Open is a sharp, slickly produced, delicious helping of Who goodness every episode I've heard so far. The randomizer is a lovely core concept, allowing for the kinds of odd cross-connections and interesting digressions Who fans crave. The episode breakdowns are snappy. The What If the Baddies Won feature is always intriguing, and the Where's Clara spots are always good for a laugh. This is one of those podcasts where I'll often hit pause in order to go off on my own musings on some arcane point, only to hit play and find our sagacious hosts. Good word, Steve. We're just about to explore the same avenues. Historical context, deep lore knowledge, and just the right amount of humorous perspective make this one a must for aspiring time travelers with 2 L's everywhere and every when. Awesome.
Wow.
Thank you, Steve. That was a great review.
Thank you, Steve. That is above and beyond just like, a friend doing it for the sake of a friend. That is some serious investment in the show. Thank you so much. I'm so honored by that. And it's good to know that us having fun and nerding out is really connecting with an audience. Is Steve a writer, by the way? Because this is phenomenally well written.
Steve has been a writer many times in the past. He works for I don't want to reveal too much about Steve while you're on the podcast. I might have to edit this out, but
Steve, you're a star.
He's a star, and he's such a star. I would love to maybe even have him on at some point, because honestly, if I'm being real, the version of Pull to Open was probably Steve and I nerding out like nonstop in the 90s over Doctor Who, among other things. And if we had captured all that on audio, it would have been a pretty freaking good podcast.
Wow.
So that was obviously before I met you, Chris. So
yes, well,
no offense at all.
we need to have him on, and we should maybe think about one day in the future we are going to offer a prize. When we get to 50 reviews, we've talked about that a few times, but also maybe we should offer a prize of being on the show. If you really want to come on the show and nerd out with us, and you've left a review, and get in touch. You know how to find us on the socials. We'd love to chat.
Yeah, you could be Pull to Open famous.
Yes.
All you got to do is leave that review. All right. Rounding out the feedback loop, I already mentioned YouTube, but our season 2 episodes, that is to say season 2 of this podcast, keep coming fast and furious every Wednesday. We're all the way up to Oxygen now. I remember that one?
I vaguely remember that one. Yeah. Good show. Yeah. Like
also,
a lot of Who stuff, it was like, better on the second viewing.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is also when I think we were really starting to hit our stride on TikTok. And engagement with the fans started to pick up, and we were really coming into hitting a really good stride, I think, with the pods. This is it's been exciting to sort of look back at the life of this podcast as I've been cutting these older episodes to video. So good times. The new episodes, of course, the ones that you're listening to now, are still posting every Saturday. So it's all happening on YouTube. And our shorts and our plot summaries are also there.
Right,
so
all of our TikToks are there, so you can watch them wherever you're watching this podcast. You can just go to YouTube and see the TikToks as well. If you don't have time for the full thing, which not everyone has time for an hour and a half. Who nerd out, but if you just want a quick dose throughout your day, check out the TikToks.
That could be TLDL because didn't listen.
too long, didn't listen. Yep. That's what our TikToks are. We're there for you. So
all right,
we have a comment of the week. Yeah,
we do. So we get comments on TikTok, on YouTube, and we've picked one of our recent comments on YouTube as our comment of the week. And I'll just read it out here. It's actually on one of our older shorts. Like I said, we're uploading all the videos we cut for social media to YouTube. So there's a new comment on an old video, and this is the video about how the term cybermen, remember that? Could be interpreted as a little bit sexist because, men. Mm-hmm. Again, I emphasize a little bit because I know people are on sort of, different perspectives on...
It's debatable, yeah.
Yeah, but... this reminded me of something, and it's just a weird coincidence that, as you know, I'm listening to Big Finish more or less in order because they have a good chunk of them on Amazon Music, and I actually got all the way up to Spare Parts, which is roughly, I forget, the 26th or 27th one they made, and Spare Parts is pre-New Who, was essentially the genesis of the Cybermen episode.
Right.
And
wasn't that was covered recently, I think, in Doctor Who magazine. They talked about it. Yeah,
it's still very well regarded. I remember other interesting pull to open fun fact. Spare Parts is the only Big Finish audio I bought on CD.
Oh,
I actually have the Spare Parts CD, and so I've certainly bought a bunch since, but they're all downloads. So I have the CD of Spare Parts. I listened to it way back when I got it, obviously. Haven't listened to it since then. So now I'm sort of re-listening. And just weird coincidence that this particular video went up on our YouTube, and this person commented, and this someone with the handle Horror Horse, love the handles,
Horror Horse,
left a comment on the video, and it says, in the Big Finish story Spare Parts, it is shown that on Mondas, all professions end with the man suffix, not just policemen, but nursemen, doctormen, sciencemen, and in the end, cybermen. And it is, yeah. It's kind of an interesting choice they made to sort of make an excuse for having Cybermen be men and rather than cyber person or cyber human or whatever, which is kind of like, okay, I guess you're kind of, again, it's not really intense sexism in the first place, but it's a little bit of a Band-Aid over this.
Yeah, it's
just a little more palatable.
It's just a great example of what you can do retroactively in a story. It kind of makes me think of Superman, not because of the man suffix, but because of the different ways that the S on his chest has been explained over the years.
Oh yeah,
in the 1978 movie, it was supposed to be like a Kryptonian symbol that Jor-El was wearing. You remember,
right?
Marlon Brando had it on his chest, so it wasn't even supposed to be an S at all. It was just complete coincidence. And then in other versions of Superman, it's been explained differently. So yeah, I love that. I love that, and we're going to get to this with the Runaway Bride. The way that good writing and writers who are really fans of the thing that they're writing for can kind of go back and sort of patch up stuff that may have been confusing in the past,
Right.
or just all of the questions that you would have in your head as a fan. Writers are increasingly dealing with them, so it's sort of nice to go back and see that was happening even pre-New Who.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, retcons can be good.
Mm.
They're not always just
Yeah.
the best kind of retcon finds a sort of a new piece of lore
Yeah.
out of the I suppose the band-aid or glue that they're trying to do, apply to an older thumb that's sort of sticking out, right?
Right.
And yeah,
and Big Finish can do it. Big
qualifies.
Finish is great at that, and I would love this recommendation of spare parts. I've always loved any Big Finish recommendations because as a non-Big Finish listener, it's like there's just too many of them, right? Where do you? It's the paradox of choice. Where do you jump in? So thoroughly appreciate the thumbs up on spare parts. I will go and track that one down myself.
Yeah, not a terrible one to start with. I certainly did. Yeah, Big Finish. They're definitely prolific, if nothing else. I think they might have even released 5 or so audios in the time we started this podcast.
Yeah, I really want to dive into their
no,
time
like
war.
literally this particular.
Yes. Oh, here comes another one. Here's another one.
Taping, yep. Since we started talking today, yeah.
I really like their time war stuff. Like, I really want to plunge more into that because that's an area that really tickles my my fan headcanon brain. Like, the details of the time war. And I started off with the first McGann one that kind of mentioned the time war, where he had a companion who kept disappearing and changing her name. I love that idea. That one gave me a good shiver. So I really want to invest more in the Big Finish kind of all of the canon that they've done around the time war. I'd really love to see that. So yeah, thanks for the recommendation. Right. We'll keep talking about Big Finish, but first,
yeah, maybe we'll even get a little spin-off. Maybe it's pushed to open. Yeah.
Well, we should do it as you're doing it in completely non-random order to a contrast with the show. Maybe that's the next podcast. We do Big Finish just completely in order, and then we rank them for everyone else who hasn't listened yet. Anyway, before we invent new podcasts, it's time to talk about The Runaway Bride.
It is. I'm glad you brought it up because it's time for you to talk about The Runaway Bride.
No! Oh, God. I completely forgot.
Which is to say the story, which I think what we're going to have to go to here is, because this is a Christmas special, and usually, the way we allocate time for doing our TLDWs, and of course, that's what this segment is, TLDW, where one of us summarizes the entire plot of the story in question in record time. But for Christmas specials, the timing's a little weird, right? Because they're usually a little longer than
was this
your average episode. I think so. Let me check the runtime on it.
I mean, yes, we do normally offer the TLW doer 30 seconds per classic episode, and then 1 minute per New Who episode. And so we are going to have trouble when we get to the Power of the Doctor, because that's 90 minutes. But a lot of these specials were that the time was a bit weird, right?
Yeah, this one's 60 minutes according to this. It could be a little plus or minus. So maybe should we do it? Should you get a little extra time?
I will take all the time that you give me. Because I'm not 100% sure on this one. But
you're going to be a little under the gun to do it in a minute. So what do you say we do a minute 10?
I would thoroughly appreciate 70 seconds to do this.
All right. I feel like it's okay. Because again, as we've identified before, you're already under the gun because New Who's pacing and just density of these episodes tends to be higher. So I think 70 seconds is only fair.
All right.
70 seconds on the clock. Are you ready, sir?
As I'll ever be. My tabs are closed. I'm looking at nothing but you on my screen. So, let's see if I can remember the Rachnos.
All right. The Rachnos to be remembered in the official pull to open summary of The Runaway Bride in 3, 2, 1, go.
So Donna Noble is on her way down the aisle to getting married. But no, what's happened? She's getting sucked up into the TARDIS in a stream of particles. And the Doctor's like, what? And Donna's like, who the hell are you? You've kidnapped me. And then they land back on Earth. The Doctor tries to get her to a wedding. But Donna jumps into a taxi. But no, it's one of the robots from the Christmas invasion. So the Doctor's chasing her down the highway in the TARDIS. And anyway, it turns out that it's her husband who's been filling her with Huron particles from work, and work actually has a vast base under the Thames Barrier, and in that base there's the Empress of the Ragnos, this ancient race that turned out to create the Earth in the first place by pulling rocks into its gravitational sphere in this Ragnos ship. So that's what she's trying to tunnel down to, like all these lost Ragnos in the middle of the planet. But the Doctor and Donna managed to stop her. Donna won't go off with the Doctor, but she says take care, and he makes it snow for her, and the TARDIS disappears. And
time, boom, not bad. 70 seconds. You used them.
I did. Wow, that's. Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of talking. I'm like, there's a lot more to this, but oh my goodness, like I can't get into the beats of the story really. Like, I can't talk about the reception. The discovery, like, all the H.C. Clements stuff, Donna's employer. There's a lot more to talk about there.
Also, what a dick Lance is.
Yes, I did not mention the husband suddenly turning. Did I mention it? I can't even remember what just happened in the last 70 seconds.
I think. Did you mention the coffee that he was serving her coffee?
Yeah, he serves. That's the Huron particles. Yes, and then the idea was to get her get her on her wedding day, because then her nervousness is activating all these chemicals in her body.
And you missed the ship. Like the Ragnos ship that comes like a Christmas star.
Yeah. So the one ship trying to find the other ship. And the army being called out to deal with it, which is really weird.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Brigadier has long retired at this point, because Brigadier would have known what to do. Just call in an RAF airstrike. You're probably more likely to hit a ship than just bringing in the army.
Yeah. Though the tanks did all right. That was one of the weird, fun things about this one. The ship is not immune to bullets.
Yes.
Like it just it just shatters almost immediately. Like just a few tank shells. Oh, well.
Yes.
That was unexpected.
this mysterious Mr. Saxon, who is apparently ordering the tanks around, obviously knew what he was doing. Yeah,
seeding that season or series 3 arc nice and early, which factors highly into my thinking of like, what if the evil plots had succeeded when we get to that.
Yeah.
But
I found.
What did you think overall of the Ragnos here as a villain?
It's interesting. First of all, I have to say it is coming up to Halloween, and after I'd watched this episode, I looked out the window, and one of our neighbors has added this sort of giant black and red spider outside their house. This giant inflatable spider just appeared while I was watching the episode, so I feel like the Ragnos actually appeared across the street. But it's interesting because it was a practical effect, and they deliberately didn't want to CGI it, and the actress playing the Ragnos Empress was one of the puppeteers of the Ragnos, right? There was this whole sort of seesaw thing, teeter-totter thing.
Sarah Parrish.
The
name of the woman who played.
It was
Ragnos.
really well done. I appreciate the sort of the little CGI eye blinking thing that it does with the other eyes. Seems like that should have happened slightly more often. In general, I appreciate not just the Ragnos Empress, but this whole episode so much more than when I first watched it at Christmas 2006. This was one that I watched at the time. And back then, I think it's important to remember not to sanitize Whovian history. Like, we all kind of look back these days and, RTD is kind of universally loved and accepted. But back in the day, there was a little bit of snobbery from old Who fans, right?
Vaguely. What are you thinking of specifically? With the story or Donna or the
story, and RTD in general, RTD's more kind of populist approach to Doctor Who, which obviously won a lot of fans, brought a whole new generation in. made it much more of the sort of accessible, countrywide Saturday afternoon TV, Saturday evening TV viewing thing that it kind of always could have been. But I think, like any, we some of the more snobbish Whovians would have frowned on the pop culture references that you get here. We get references to Donna is basically kind of today we would call her basic. She's sort of Lance. There's this point where Lance basically, once the mask has dropped and he's revealed himself to be on the side of the Ragnas, he just goes through all of the stuff that he's had to put up with her, nattering on about. And it's this whole thing of like, is Posh pregnant? Ooh, Brad and Angelina, X Factor, Atkins diet. And he's sort of ticking off these cultural obsessions, which are very 2006, right? It definitely locates this in time. And it's interesting because it is kind of, you look back on it and it's kind of a timeless episode, but it is definitely of a moment.
Yeah, the flip phones alone.
Yeah.
Really, really zero it in on a specific time, which again, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think when Doctor Who shows us this sort of rubber hits the road reality of just how people are living in that day, yeah, you run that risk of it coming across as dated, and it does. But I mean, the story still resonates, and it's still super fun.
I mean, whenever I think of the early RTD era, I think of a website that I used to go to that just had reviews. It just had user reviews of every show, which was kind of unusual at the time. And the first 10 would all be negative, at least, the ones that kind of were upvoted.
The internet.
I know. And the thing I remember about that website is that it was called Gallifrey something. It was a reviews website. There are probably some listeners who remember what I'm talking about. But it stopped right before Blink. That's what I remember. Like the website, it got bought or shut down or something. And I remember like watching through those episodes and getting to Blink and wanting to know, like, okay, is this enough? Is this good enough for the old school fans? Like, how can you find? Because I was like, I'd watched Human Nature and Family of Blood, and they seemed to be really good shows. And I went to that, and then people found all these reasons to hate on it because it was originally, a Sylvester McCoy novel, novelization, right? And so they were like, oh, it's not the way it should be. And there was a lot of that. And then I finally got to Blink. I was like, come on, what's your reaction? And the website just effectively disappeared up itself, as it were.
It definitely makes you wonder about like seeing this now, what the next era of Russell T Davies is going to be for the show, because the show's in a different place. And honestly, fandom and franchises like this are in a different place. Like everything has evolved more toward fan service, just sort of naturally because of the symbiotic relationship with the internet and how streaming has exacerbated that sort of super narrow bandwidth, go lean in and hard on this one particular universe, and just go super nerdy with it. Whereas Doctor Who, to your point, everything you said, it rings true. Saturday afternoon tea time viewing, and that goes double, if not triple, for these Christmas specials.
Yes,
which I think Moffat, when we, as everyone knows, we're journalists, and we were talking to him once, or at least I was, in some group interview, and he would talk about how it's competing with Christmas.
Yes,
so like you
really
need
a bit louder,
louder, volume up, simpler. It's really just gotta like be almost the closest thing Doctor Who has to a summer blockbuster are kind of these Christmas specials, at least the way they approach them. And that's definitely the case with this one.
One thing about, say what you like, old Who fan, new Who fan, whatever, you cannot deny that he knows how to do a cliffhanger. When he does that, because obviously the new Who format doesn't allow for a lot of cliffhangers, because there weren't that many more than one parters. But in this case, we had the cliffhanger from the end of Doomsday of Donna appearing in the TARDIS, and just that what? Wonderful moment. But you like, as an old Who fan watching that, you're simultaneously like, I'm not sure about this, but also like you really want to watch. How are they going to explain this? And at the time, I thought it was kind of a bit naff, the explanation. But looking back on it now, especially looking back on it now after our show bouncing back and forth between new and old Who, we can see how good this is in contrast in terms of the amount of explanation that they give us, right? It's just
Right.
enough. RTD gives us just enough. He knows what questions we're going to have. Like
Yeah.
the Huron energy thing, for the explanation for the particles, why she's getting beamed in the TARDIS, and there's one Huron particle in TARDIS. Like, I buy that now. I don't think I
Yeah.
bought it at the time, but I buy it now, especially compared to something like Time Flight that we've just been to, where like
Mm.
the explanations are just all over the place and they're mostly lacking, right?
Yeah, or they just
So,
don't even bother with, like,
yeah,
say, the Master's disguise.
yeah.
They just sort of have him unmask and move on. Yeah, I got to say, Davies was the master at this, like giving
Mm,
you just enough throwaway dialogue. Really, like to your point earlier, being a fan of his own show
yeah.
and respecting that, and like, okay, people are going to ask this, and we gotta, or this contradicts that. Therefore, we need something in here to placate people. And I feel like you've read the writer's tale, right?
Yes.
So I've never fully read that. I've sort of only read bits of it. I'm curious about these season ender cliffhangers, like this one, and also the one with the following season with that leads into Voyage of the Damned. Did he
Yes, the
even know
Titanic.
what he was going to do? Like, I feel like he decided just to do something that looked like it was a fun, interesting thing, and like, okay, future self, write your way out of this one.
He does have that style as a writer in general. You're absolutely right about that. That definitely comes across in the writer's tale. In fact, in the writer's tale, you see him rewriting the show in the emails that he's sending back and forth with
Right.
Benjamin Cook of Doctor Who magazine. Like he's doing it on the fly. He's like, "Oh, that would be good. Oh, that'll be good tea time viewing. Oh, that'll be good repeatability for the playground." Like he's got this in the back of his head all the time. In this case, however, the Runaway Bride was supposed to be a mid-season story. It was supposed to be a story for Rose and Ten in the middle of the season. And then when Billie Piper announced that she was leaving, you know, instead of having a story where the bride beams up into the TARDIS and both the Doctor and Rose are there to meet
Both
her.
saying what?
What? What?
What?
What? You what? You what?
What? Just go
Yeah.
back and look.
And
Yeah.
then you know, Rose and Donna have a competition on how you know, basic and chav-like they can be. No, love you both, Rose and Donna. Love you both. And yeah, but so this was then kind of a natural fit for the season ender, because it's obvious you don't want to go straight into the next companion. You know, if Billie
Yeah.
Piper's leaving at the end of season 2, you don't want, for this Christmas special, you don't want to introduce a new companion. So
Yeah.
perfect kind of filler. So he actually did, in this case, know what story he was doing. Titanic, I'm not so sure. That does seem more like a yeah, let's just throw the Titanic into the TARDIS and see what happens kind of thing. But yeah,
Well,
it's good. It's good when you're not too respectful of your own show, that you don't want to try something new, you know.
yeah, absolutely. And I actually didn't know what you mentioned before, that this was originally supposed to be a mid-season episode,
Mm-hmm.
because the way he rewrote it, I mean, it's such a good bridge, right?
Yeah.
Like that's to your point. I think the main purpose of this episode is to have that buffer between the sort of gut-wrenching events of Doomsday that had everyone in tears, and it was clearly traumatic for the Doctor, and going into series 3 with Martha, you could you would want Martha to be the she already is kind of the rebound companion, but you kind of need a bridge.
And do you know
And
what?
yeah.
I've only just realized this, and it's kind of sending a chill down my spine. Why the randomizer sent us here?
Hmm.
Because we went through this with Adric in Time Flight, right?
Oh, yes.
Time
The
Flight was
emotional
not
beats.
enough. It was not enough of
Mm,
a bridge
yeah.
post Adric. Wow. I seriously just got shivers
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Wow. What a comparison, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
you
It's
deal
huge.
with the loss of a companion. You do. This is, I guess, Davies learned that from the old show. Maybe he was even thinking of Time
Yeah.
Flight when he thought of this buffer. You know.
Well, especially because Rose was both the original companion of New Who, was a big part of why the show had so much mass appeal.
Yes.
And in the context of the show too, was so special, was clearly, like, in addition to being a companion, kind of this soulmate and this romantic interest for the Doctor too that they
Mm.
haven't really done since. It's a little bit, but like one, you don't want to repeat yourself too much, but also like I like that specialness of her, and you just could like I mean it was just like Doomsday, like it was just oh my god, like you thought you were crying
Yeah.
in the girl at the fireplace, like it's like you have no idea, right? Like it
Yeah.
was just like that was a weep fest,
It totally
and
was. And you do need some time to get over that. And I love
yeah,
that they inserted the scene with, when they start to rewrite this as a Christmas special, then he inserts the scene where Donna finds an item of Rose's clothing,
hmm
which is actually from, I think it's the sweater she was wearing in the Stolen Earth. No, was it no, sorry, not Stolen Earth, New Earth.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, she leaves the sweater behind in the TARDIS, and Donna finds it. Originally, they did actually shoot a scene where the Doctor kind of angrily throws that sweater out of the TARDIS.
right. I read about that.
Yeah, and they removed that because it was just like a little bit too melodramatic.
Yeah,
Right?
too much,
Too much.
too much.
Didn't need to do
Better,
it.
less is more for sure. Like, and I got to say, Tennant's performance here, just great. I mean,
Yeah.
he's really hitting his stride as the Doctor. He has the right beats. Like somehow he, again, I think this is to credit to the script, Davies, and everyone involved. You really believe those emotional moments, but they
Mm,
still keep it light. Like that
yeah.
it's paced just right. And the scenes I'm thinking of specifically, um, the rooftop scene where they've just gone through the chase with the
Yeah.
Santas and the TARDIS flying, and you need a break because that was very high octane, very like huge action sequence.
Mm,
But that first sort of real connection between the Doctor and Donna, I think was such a. I mean, they're both playing it really, really well, and it really just not just only serves as kind of a good moment for the Doctor and in this episode, but I think it sort of shows the depth that we would come to see in series 4.
yeah.
Like yeah, why Donna sort of works out because she can actually um, provide this sort of canvas that the Doctor and her kind of like can explore beyond just the banter.
It's also nice to have a buffer between romantic companions, right? Because
Sure.
obviously, with Martha coming along, it would reverse the polarity of the romantic flow, as it were, with Martha being more into the Doctor than he was into her. So it's nice to have that break, and it's also almost kind of a reference to, obviously not intended, but a reference to her line later on of like, "I'm not into you. You're skinny." Right,
Yeah.
when she comes back full time, and here there's a line like that where he
Yeah.
puts his jacket around her on the rooftop, and she's like, "Oh, you're skinny, aren't you? Like a rat couldn't get
Yeah.
into this." So it's clear that Donna is not into the Doctor. It's nice to have that
Yeah.
break from
Which
all of the romance with Rose.
I totally believe that, by the way, that
Mm.
Donna Noble is into guys who are a bit more butch.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
like yes, that's totally in keeping with her character.
yeah. No, and we've seen two of the people in
Oh,
Doctor
that's
Who that she
right.
chose to marry. Right, Lee
Yep.
in Dave. Oh gosh. Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead. Yes.
Right. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes, I get chills just remembering that one. Yeah. So I also wanted to talk about RTD's original inspiration for this because as popular a writer as he was, and as much as he was focused on popular culture and bringing people in, he was also a Who nerd, and I think that's what those
Mhm.
early kind of snobbish reviewers didn't realize. And that is the true origin story of the Runaway Bride, is that young RTD as a kid on car rides imagines the TARDIS chasing in a car chase.
Mhm. Yeah.
Young Who fan, and I can so relate to that kind of daydreaminess of
Totally.
yeah, like
Well, I also like
you're
I
so
feel
bored, you're on the freeway, and like, hey, wouldn't it be great if the TARDIS came running toward us now?
yeah, oh wow. Like I used to go with my family in car rides. This is awakening a big memory
Yeah.
eruption in me. Car rides to Seattle from Edmonton, which is like a
Huh.
2-day drive with a family.
Wow.
And there
Yes.
was just hours and hours of on the highway. And you'd imagine things. I had all these fictional characters that would fly with us, or be on motorized roller skates or something, and I really love that idea. And I got to say, this is going to rant a little bit, as someone who's a little bit older now, like the kids today with their iPads.
What's happened to staring out of a car window and being so bored out of your mind that you have to imagine something? Yeah.
Well, then you get scenes like this years later, right? So it's kudos to the old school. But I got to say, like that was such a cool scene. Like, even though it's borderline a retcon, it isn't really, because the TARDIS certainly sort of hovers and is shown to sort of quote unquote fly here and there, but not in this sort of action movie, almost like a fighter plane kind of way. This is like really the first time it's done that, and I really like how it's thought about. Not like he doesn't just click a few switches and do it. Like, it seems like it's kind of a big deal, and kind of there's a certain analog aspect to it where he has this string attached to the console. Like, he seems to have a really it's a big effort on his part to do it, and the TARDIS, because the TARDIS is like sparking and all this stuff. So I feel like he earns it, right? Like he realizes, like, oh, it can't just be him doing a few switches and just flying alongside it. It's got to be harder than that. And
you got to take the parking brake off. I love that scene where Tennant is so physical with the console.
Yeah.
And he's just dragging stuff out, pulling stuff. He's definitely in the hit it with a hammer mode of operating the TARDIS, which is just wonderful.
I think he might literally do that at some point in the sequence.
Yeah.
And I got it. Like, it's a great sequence. It really works. I mean, there's the emotional moment too of him just begging Donna to trust him and jump, and he has to, in that moment, reveal that Rose is actually alive and okay. So it's a good character moment too. But I mean, it's just really, the crescendo is huge, and my kids were basically jumping up and cheering when this scene happened, and like my daughter was like, "Cool thing happened," and Jack was like, "Touchdown!" It was just this really great sort of rousing, family pleasing moment, which, I mean, that's what you need, right? It's the Christmas special, like, boom.
Indeed, and it's so wonderfully echoed in that moment on the screen, because you have the two kids in the back of the car that's watching this, watching this whole thing, and they're like, "Go on, jump, jump!" You can't actually hear them, but you sort of see them mouthing "jump" through the window, and they're cheering, and it's like, again, it's sort of that sense of Christmas togetherness, which is really good. By the way, we should say, like, you can pick apart The Runaway Bride, and one of the biggest things you can do to pick it apart is point out that there would be no leaves on the trees at Christmas. And this was filmed in the middle of July, and Tennant sort of famously was like, he was sweating in his coat.
No, probably not the first time. And by the way, I could relate right now.
Yeah, indeed. You're method acting right now. But at least you're doing it in October, when it kind of makes sense. Like,
exactly. I just got to open a window. That's all.
Exactly. But yeah, you almost don't want to pick it apart. I do have to say, like, this speaks to a lot of the RTD-ness of the show, the romance factor. The fact that they were trying something new. You have the show's first sort of in-show song, "Love Don't Roam," written by Murray Gold and sung by Neil Hannon of the Divine Comedy, and it's playing in the at the reception.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And everyone's dancing along to it, and it's sort of the cue for the Doctor to kind of remember Rose. He has a brief flash of memory of, I guess, dancing with Rose, and he sees a blonde woman that reminds him of Rose. So it's a great story beat and a great song, but I do have to say, I only just discovered after I watched this that the song was based on a song called "The Snake" by Al Wilson. Have you heard that song?
No, I haven't.
You knew I was a snake when I took you in. It's like, it's a whole narrative between a woman and a snake. It's a 70s song. Go look it up. If you're on Spotify, just queue it up for next in your queue after this podcast, and you'll hear. You can actually listen to both "Love Don't Roam" and "The Snake." But But I thought Love Don't Roam was fantastic when I first heard it, like 10 years ago, whatever. And then I listened to the Snake. I'm like, oh my god, the estate of Al Wilson should sue for copyright infringements. Wow, it's so similar.
Don't give the BBC any excuses to cancel the show, because they'll jump at the chance, I'm sure, because it's just from historical context.
Al Wilson's estate, please do not sue the BBC because they might sue us. Or go back in time and release the song first so that they can sue.
Or does Murray Gold actually have those rights? I don't know how the rights are done there. I gotta wonder if if Murray Gold has seen a good amount of royalties from Whovians getting married in subsequent years from this episode that played it at their reception. Probably made, like, £1.16 or something.
Right. Go give them some more listens on Spotify, people. But yeah, it is Murray Gold's music is definitely a standout in this episode, but it's also definitely one of those things that it's like, this is modern Who. I love that scene in the 5-ish Doctors special. You remember the 50th anniversary, sure. Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, when they step inside the studio and it goes all like 80s synth background, and they step outside and it's like Murray Gold music, and they keep going back and forth like, huh? But that is so noticeable after coming from Time Flight, right? I feel like that's what we're doing ourselves. But Murray Gold's music basically says, hey, this is like Hollywood action adventure for the whole family. Sit down and listen, you're going to have fun, right? Which I think is what a lot of the snobby old Who fans were concerned about. It's sort of that direction.
Yeah, I mean, what I do like about Davies, I like a lot about Davies, because I like his approach to Who in this populist way, and sort of going for the widest possible audience. I guess what I would say about Davies generally is that he would go for the widest possible audience, but he wouldn't necessarily go for the lowest common denominator.
Oh, yeah, good
even
one.
Though I think people wrongly think he does, but he actually has a lot of strength to please. Like, that's what I like about him, because he can do these wide mass appeal things, but also have that dialogue that fits with the universe that fans have created.
Yeah. Agreed. And Davies is sort of like, I've yet to see a Davies episode that isn't improved by a second viewing. Because I think you look back and you see all the things that he's done. You're like, oh, actually, yeah, I see what you did there. Like that's super clever. You connected this to that.
Well, I also think he has a good classic Who sense about him. And in this episode in particular, I like that he goes for that big sci-fi concept of, hey, the first rock of the Earth was actually the Rachnos ship. And there's echoes of that throughout Doctor Who, classic Who. Like, you think about the Fendal or Scaroth, and these big things that essentially created, things that we know, whether it's the universe. Terminus, that's another one, right? Like, the universe was created by this spaceship with a dog on it.
Yes, and we've been to that.
But it is like, why not? Like, do it, go for it. Yeah, this is what Doctor Who is all about, and sort of giving you sort of a fun, interesting take, like, quote unquote real take on how something was created or whatever in the universe, and it sort of still somehow fits with the whole continuity that's been built up over the years. I love it.
Yeah, it's the it's the educational mandate, because yes, we know that actually in real life the Ragnar ship is not at the center of the Earth, and how could it be? It would just be molten lava down there. But you believe it in the show. We see it happen, which is something that this has got over Terminus and all of that stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what you can do when you finally have CGI.
Exactly. We actually see it happen, perhaps sped up a little bit, right? It seems to be happening rather fast, but fine. It's okay. I get it. Like, it's believable enough. It gets you over that hump. We see it happen. But also then kids are going to be interested, like, well, what actually is at the center of the Earth? And you can go off and do your own education on Wikipedia after, which was sort of starting to be a thing around this time.
Well, I got to say that the Rachnos really one-up Stallman here by creating a tunnel all the way to the center of the Earth, whereas Stallman in Inferno had trouble getting through the crust.
If only he'd known. Just build under the Thames Barrier, dude. That's where it is.
Somehow that bypasses all the green goo and no one becomes a Primord.
What did they say?
Or do they?
Or do they? Yes, follow up to the Runaway Bride. But they say something about Torchwood did it by laser? Like they lasered through to the center of the Earth?
Yeah, there's a lot of throwaway stuff about Torchwood here, some of which makes sense, some of it doesn't. But yeah, I think the whole implication is there was some laser technology, alien technology that the Rachnos took by taking this thing over from Torchwood to be able to quickly tunnel to the center of the Earth, I guess.
Yes, and it gets meta about it. Like, this is one thing that New Who does that is a change from classic Who, is that the Doctor will say things like, oh, secret base under a London landmark. That never happens.
Yeah, there's some almost fourth wall breaking moments like that. I like that one. That was really good, and it reminded me a bit of the line in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where it's like, "What's this? The Ark of the Covenant? Are you sure? Pretty sure." Like
yes,
that's one of the all-time great lines in that. You could get away with that as long as you don't overdo it. There is actually a moment, I think it almost takes me out of the show, but you're having such a good time, it doesn't matter. It's like when they're actually riding the segways.
Yes, they randomly find segways in this tunnel.
And they basically break character, and they're just kind of goofing on them, and there's no lines, but it's pretty clear they're just David Tennant and Catherine Tate just having a laugh on segways.
Well, that itself doesn't feel new, especially since we've been to Fury of the Deep, right, where they were playing around in the sea foam, and we know that was actually just Patrick Troughton, Fraser Hines, and Victoria Deborah Watling, just messing around in foam. They just have captured that spontaneous moment.
True, it's just that was before there was some terrible thing threatening the Earth / world / universe, So now that we're in the midst of it, maybe a little more fear, urgency on the face. No, we're just having a laugh on some segues. It's all good.
Yeah. It's nice to see the Doctor sort of let loose every so often and kind of like, okay, just having fun riding a Segway.
It is fun.
Didn't really stop me.
Right. No, it doesn't stop me either. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things you catch on second viewing, because really this is about mostly the fun, right? I mean, it's like there's so many good lines. It's like the humor here, particularly from Tennant, where he's like, "Oh, good luck, allowance," and like he mentions in the elevator, "To honor and obey," and you're starting to get that repartee between him and Tate, which again, they had, they went all the way with it in her season. But actually, my favorite line might be Lance's, where he says, "This time it's personnel."
Yeah, I liked it and I didn't like it. I'm like, oh god, that's in the way that one often approaches puns. Like, oh my god, you didn't. Oh my god, why am I laughing? I'm laughing too hard at this. Stop laughing.
You can tell between the two of us, Chris, I'm the dad, so that joke I have to have a special appreciation for.
Moments like that,
just to taste.
Moments like that, I'm often like, did you just throw that in just for the trailer? Like, it's just like, hey, you can show the BBC bosses this. Hey, you can use this in your Christmas trailer. This type of personnel. I guess it doesn't really make sense outside of the context, so maybe not. But it's one of those moments where you're like, would he really say that? But I did believe Lance's character a lot more this time. I did believe the whole thing with the Huron particles and the coffee. Like, I get it now in a way that at the time I was a bit watching this the first time. You're a bit more what?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I liked the bit. It's a nice little detail where they have both Lance and Donna webbed up, and the Huon particles are starting to glow. And when she was prepping Lance to be the key, because Donna wasn't there anymore, you kind of wonder, well, why did you just do that in the first place? But when they're glowing, his glow is so much dimmer than hers. So clearly, like, the 6 months of working her, like, that's the proper way to do the key. And there was some aspect, like, in other words, Lance probably would have been a pretty shitty key, but who knows if that would have worked or not.
Yeah.
Though we're
He,
getting kind
he
of
wasn't nervous enough in the church. That was his problem.
yeah. But before we get to that evil plot potentially succeeding, I want to ask about one of the key scenes in this adventure, and it's towards the end, and it's basically where they've the Doctor has started b- almost defeated the Rachnos. They basically pulled in the Thames, and it's kind of like the oncoming storm Doctor comes out,
Yes.
and the Donna has to talk him down from that. You can stop now. It's one of the it's a very pivotal moment, not just in this particular story, but in I think in Doctor Who, because it's obviously referenced later in Turn Left. It is kind of one of these things where that one of these things that emphasizes when the Doctor really needs companions,
Yeah.
and I think it really works here as an emotional beat. If I have any issue with it, it's that he's not even really doing anything right then and there. Right, he's just kind of standing there and staring out at the water coming to rush in to kill the Rachnos.
Yeah, you really sort of need like sound effect of Ragnar screams.
Yeah,
kind of, echoing from the middle of the planet or something. Because it's just like it's not entirely clear. Like, what are you doing? It kind of puts you in mind of flushing spiders down a bathtub. Like
yeah,
they'll be fine. They always survive
right.
in the drains. So what's the problem here?
Well,
But
especially if they survive the center of the Earth.
yeah,
Like
isn't this
a little
just
water?
actually cooling them off? Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't they actually need this? They come up like, thanks, Doctor. We needed that drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's that is one part that stopped me. But I like the whole Doctor as lonely god thing, and this is
Yeah.
really sort of the first time we see it because Rose never had to, or did she? Did she ever have to pull him back in this sort of way?
Kind of generally throughout. I
Mm.
I like that Rose right off the bat, even when she was with Eggleston, was arguing with him over, say, the Gelf in what was the name of that one? The Unquiet Dead,
Yes.
about what the proper way to help them or deal with them was, and so she was always sort of scrappy and humanizing his
Mm.
approach, whether that was for better or for worse. So that was good. I'd have to think about it if there was like a
But it's
specific story
certainly
where she talked him down from this, like in a
it's
similar way.
certainly this is more, right? This is,
Yeah,
you
very
could
explicitly.
say you could make an argument that this is near genocide, that the Doctor's
Right.
doing, which like
Yeah. Or
gets
finishing.
at
Yeah. Kind of
get
finishing the job of the Time
mhm.
Lords, which they apparently did, eons ago. And interesting side note: there is a short story about the Rachnos and what they were like in that era in some book I remember reading. It's a compilation of short stories. It's like myths and legends, that
Mhm.
pick up on the myths. I've mentioned it before in the context of the moment
Mm.
from Day of the
Day of
Doctor.
the Doctor.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting connection to make because after Day of the Doctor, where we see that the Doctor thought himself responsible for two genocides, right? His own
Mm,
people and that of the Daleks. And now here he is genociding again and
yeah.
kind of doing it casually. And it's like he's just, he does need someone because he is going too far in that direction.
Yeah. No, honestly, we should inventory the Doctor's genocides. I mean, we've been free from the deep, the weed. I mean, it wasn't intelligent, so maybe it doesn't count. I
Yeah.
mean, or was it? Like we actually asked in that podcast, is it? It's not really clear if it's intelligent or not. I mean, you could talk about the Vervoids, which of course he sort of stood trial for.
Mm.
But we could go on and on. I mean, I bet there's at least a dozen, right? Like the Damons, wasn't that guy the last of his kind? I forget.
There's a
Um,
lot of that. I mean, it's sort of one of the biggest Doctor Who tropes. The other biggest one, by the way, being we've been here for billions of years, Doctor, which is totally done yet again here.
right. Which this is the one big. It's not, you don't think of it during the episode, right? Because
Mm,
this is my whole test of plot holes. If you're thinking of it while it's happening,
yes.
that's a serious problem. If it's something you come to after the fact, when you're sort of analyzing the episode, like we are, not a problem.
Mm.
Even though it's fun to think about. So, but I always wonder, like, what took you so long, Arachnos? I mean, why now? That's a big question. Why didn't you get your people from the center of the earth much earlier than this? Why did it have to be right this? Did they ever? Was there even a throwaway line that sort of addresses that, or is it all just
No, they really don't. It just, yeah, the Queen just happened to show up at the right time and just happened to know where the Doctor was going to be with the Santa robots. There's a few moments like that. You look back and you're like, that was all a bit convenient, wasn't it? But yeah, no line that I could spot explains
Yeah,
that.
because I guess the ship went off to the edge of the universe and now only just getting back.
Yeah,
So maybe it was
you
just,
know how it is. You put off these important items on your to-do list. Like she's
well, and then when it's time to do it, there's no bus in sight, right? What is it? Never a tram when you need one.
Exactly.
Is
There's
that a line?
never a Christmas star when you need one. Then three come along all at once. Yeah. The shape of the ship and it being the Christmas star is kind of interesting. I like it. I like that this is like a Christmas episode that's not trying too hard to be Christmassy.
Yeah.
Except for perhaps for the snow at the end, the making it snow, which is that did stop me. Like it's a bad snow effect. It's clearly just a snowblower just off one side of the screen.
I like the callback to the first Christmas special with the Santas, and to a lesser extent the Christmas tree, which isn't the same as the one that sort of tries to kill him in the Christmas Invasion.
Christmas Invasion, yeah.
But I liked it, even though it's really stretching it. That they're back again, and wait a second, are those But that's a good moment when he initially is like, oh, wait, hold on. But it is also like, hold on. In any real world, the same kind of robots and they look the same. I guess it's just sort of the popular on supervillain eBay in terms of dressing up your robots. It's like just get the cheap Santa one. It's Amazon's choice.
And one of them just happened to know how to drive a taxi.
Right.
And didn't do so. That part stopped me because if you're in London, you jump into a taxi, the driver always turns around because you've got to negotiate with the driver about where you're going. The driver has to accept the location. So it would be a bit weird for Donna to kind of just jump in and say, I need to get to this church. If the robot had really studied its its replacement, he should have turned around and said, "What, this time, love? This time, south of the river. Go on, do me a favor. I'm gonna have to charge you double."
Take in full.
Yeah, I love the Doctor making the ATM rain money to keep the robots at bay, and they did apparently make fake money for this because it is an offence in the UK to replicate real money.
Oh, interesting.
With the Queen's head on it, so it had Tennant's face on it. This money that they made, and it says, "I promise to pay the bearer 10 satsumas." And then it's something else. It's like, "I'm just that kind of man, no second chances."
Yeah. Okay.
On the money.
What's the Satsumas reference? Is that
it is a Tennant reference, and I can't remember it because I'm thinking of the other Christmas, the Capaldi Christmas, that last Christmas, with the Satsumas.
Yeah, I remember Kronk burgers back in Eggleston days. Anyway, someone write in. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting that the money had to be printed for that reason. I wonder, I guess whenever they show real money or something close to it in British television, it's always real, huh? It's always like a real pound.
Oh, it's a Christmas Invasion reference, of course. The newly regenerated Doctor finds a Satsuma in his pocket, and he starts to talk about that. But yeah, if you go online, you can actually see the prop. Here it is. I'm looking at it right now. No second chances. I'm just that sort of man. It's got a little TARDIS on it. Oh, this is beautiful. Beautiful. But otherwise, from a distance, looks like a £10 note.
Nice.
It also has not legal tender written on it, just in case.
So a nice little note about this one is that as a Christmas special, you get, remember the Next Time trailer.
Yes.
That sort of previews at least the first chunk of the season. And I watched that as I was watching it on the DVD. And it just brought back all these memories of how how cool all this stuff was at the time. And I love that sort of, they cut to like a Dalek at the very end. which is clearly from Daleks in Manhattan. But I remember when that was just so cool, and that was such a reveal. And again, it speaks again to how the New Who universe Davies set up, with the Daleks and the Time Lords being completely wiped out. And every time he brought back the Daleks, then it was like super dramatic, at least for a while, right?
Yeah.
Once it get to the fourth or fifth time, it was a little like, okay, of course you're gonna have Daleks back. But I just remember that feeling when I watched that next time trailer again. Like, oh yeah, it's like Dalek Sec. That was so cool, and that was such a cool reveal. I don't know. I feel like, have we lost something now that we're so much further in sort of series 13? Can they do that again?
It's hard, isn't it? I mean, yeah, you got to use the Daleks, Cybermen, and Master. You got to use
Well,
them all
yeah,
sparingly.
not just the Daleks though. I mean that kind of way
Mm.
just to surprise us somehow, or like
Mm.
have kind of a big reveal. Like even the trailers for the Power of the Doctor. I guess with Ace and Tegan
Hmm.
there was something there for sure.
There's
But
something there, and there's clearly a lot that that we're not seeing, but that you, dear listener, know more than
yeah,
us.
true.
You're like, whoa, they don't even know what they're in for, and it's true. We don't. So, like, maybe that proves that surprise is not dead. Um,
Hmm.
and I hope that's the case. Did you? So, um, speaking of like canon Doctor Who and inserting stuff and surprising things. The mention of the Doctor's pockets, is that the first time? So the Doctor's pockets are basically revealed to be dimensionally transcendent, uh, which is apparently a thing in the books, like that's previously been mentioned.
Oh, maybe.
That
I
his
don't know.
pockets are literally bigger on the inside. But this may be the first time they actually says it in the show.
Yeah, but it's more of a gag here than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of course they are. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of reminded of For the Doomsday, where they actually inventory the Doctor's pockets at one point. It's just thing after thing after thing after thing. And I think they've done that a couple times in Classic Who, but the it's kind of like it's one of these things that's never been said, but makes total sense if you want to believe it. But at the same time, it could just be a gag, that like he just kind of had this thing, and where'd you get that? It was like, well, maybe he's got a jacket. I mean, it's not like it's skin tight.
It is. It's funny that this episode should pick, because I'd recently been reminded that I wanted to write a story in my non-Doctor Who journalism side on the problem with pockets, and the
Hmm.
story was going to be called, "Men Try a Day Without Pockets."
Okay.
See what women have to put up with by try walking around
Right.
without pockets for a day. And they have this whole conversation about how, I didn't choose a wedding dress with pockets, but the Doctor's got giant pockets, right? So that's kind of an interesting reference to a cultural issue that has only been brought up more since then, I think.
Hmm.
Like, it started to kind of become a thing online for a while.
Could explain why backpacks had a huge comeback around around the same
Did
time.
you? So the list of cultural references that Lance makes when he's sort of explaining why
Yeah.
Donna kind of bored him so much. Did those were any of those like very British? I don't think so, right? X Factor is something. Was that over here? Was that just a British show?
It eventually came over here.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty sure. And
Yeah.
but you get it.
Is
Even if you don't have
yeah.
it, you get it, right?
Mm,
I mean, she's into reality TV. She's into
mm,
gossip. She's into People magazine or whatever the equivalent.
yeah.
Like to your point, I think the word you used was perfect in terms of basic. Oh, she's
Mm,
a basic person, which a lot of people can find insufferable.
yeah.
And so that all came across.
And there's that beautiful
Um,
moment where she cries about it, where she kind of
yeah.
has this moment of realization of like, oh God, is that who I am? And it's nice, a beautiful contrast with the point where she's fake crying at the reception to kind
Yeah.
of get rid of all questions about where she's been. She starts fake crying, winks at the Doctor, and then she real cries. So it's a nice callback. It's a nice sort of dramatic structure to
Oh,
it.
this is such a good, and I
Um,
don't think we've talked enough about Catherine Tate
mm,
here on how like
mm,
she's really figured out this character right from the get go. And even though she's
mm.
probably a bit thicker here, I will say, doesn't mean
Yeah.
to slam at all, than she is the Donna that we love from series 4. but that makes sense because
Yes.
here she's kind of had an awakening, and her experience with the Doctor really affects her. And she really plays that affectation, like her being affected in that scene where she's just been ripped apart by Lance, and her heart has been, slammed down on the floor and stomped on.
Hmm.
And the Doctor's trying to get her to get into the idea that you're seeing the creation of the Earth that no one's ever seen, and she's just not having it, which is exactly right. Like she's just had her whole life upended, and I think this is again one of those moments. Rather than making her look bad, it makes the Doctor kind of look bad, and
Hmm.
another reminder why he needs these human connections, because they have feelings and they break, and
Hmm.
that needs to be respected. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
was also going to say that the thing that it brings up for me now watching this in 2022 is like it makes me think of the Onion headline on 9/11 or after 9/11,
yeah,
which was a heartbroken nation longs to care about stupid shit again.
right,
Which is really kind of what we're talking about. Like that
yeah,
was this stupid stuff that we were obsessed with in 2006. Now Britain post Brexit, like it doesn't have those cultural touchstones anymore.
mm,
The whole nation is not
yeah.
kind of talking about is posh pregnant, X Factor, Atkins diet, etc. Like it's now there are two Britons and they're constantly at war with each other. So it's kind of a sad reminder of a bygone time where we really had it better than we ever knew.
Yeah, and partly I think that is because of the fragmentation of pop culture too.
Mm,
And as younger generations have, you know, gotten older and are defining culture more, it's clear that these things like reality TV and, just these common or even sports, right? I mean, it's just
mm,
not as much of a common cultural language between everyone, and because people are on their own uh, you know, groups on YouTube or TikTok or wherever. Which again, if you're a fan of Doctor Who and Pulled to Open, isn't a bad thing, but it's also just a temperature take of the world. Because yeah, you're right. I think said about what you said speaks to Britain, but I think
mm.
it's just as valid here in the
Yeah,
States
yeah,
that they're just, there might be a couple of things. I mean, even if you think back to our time at Mashable when Game of Thrones might have been one of those last things everyone could kind of agree on.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if there's that many of those anymore. Like there's the Game of Thrones new show with Matt Smith and everything, but not everyone's watching that. Not even the
Right.
whole Game of like there's just not as much we agree on. Other
There's not that
than
much that we've all seen because there's too much content
yeah,
out there.
like the
Yeah,
last thing was probably that Spider-Man movie. Like Spider-Man No Way Home was probably it.
not even that. I didn't even see that. So that's.
Well,
But yeah,
there
I
you
think
go.
you're right to talk about Marvel in general. Like I think
Yeah.
that is possibly the closest thing that we have, and this kind of almost has that Marvel feel to it, right?
Mhm.
The way that the MCU sort of makes pop culture references, it has an
Right.
RTD feel. Like I don't know much how much Kevin Feige like watched RTD's seasons of Doctor Who, but it certainly feels like an influence, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it has to feel real, right? I mean, that's
Mm,
the main thing. If it's just this weird other universe where things are happening that doesn't resemble the real world, it becomes a problem. And this is honestly like this is not to get too much into this aspect of the Davies era, but his choice to basically make aliens well known, which
mm,
was the previous Christmas special,
yeah,
and it comes up a little bit here in the context of Donna. Like he kind of at post Christmas invasion, he kind of wanted to have his cake and eat it too, which is to say, hey, this still feels like contemporary Britain, and has characters like Donna who are seemingly clueless and don't really tune into the existence of aliens, except everyone knows there's aliens now,
right,
and like so which is it? And of course they rebooted their timelines time and again after that, so pick your continuity and whatever you want to do. But it's kind of like I'm glad they tried it, but it
yeah.
became, as time went on, increasingly an issue that the Earth that the Doctor Who universe was building was not our universe.
Yeah, and we definitely see this carried on in the Moffat era with the whole question of like, why do people keep forgetting that they're
Yeah,
aliens? Why do they keep forgetting about all of these invasions? Which is something that Classic Who never dealt with, but you kind of have to now. You have
Yeah.
to, and it's sort of hinted at here, like Donna was on holiday in Spain during the,
Right.
attack on Canary Wharf. But she seems to know what it is because she knows she was on holiday at Spain at the time, right? And
Yeah.
it's
She
a
heard about it.
perception filtery kind of thing,
Yeah.
where it's, you see a police box, but then you forget it a moment later, right?
Yeah.
And it's applied society wide.
Well, it's like that
And,
YouTube comment we got about
mm,
the clowns,
mm,
and or I forgot if that was TikTok, but yeah, this idea that people just forget about everything, which is like explicit in the monks episode,
mm,
"The Lie of the Land," that they just suddenly everyone just kind of wants to forget.
mm.
Again, even that one is like that doesn't make much sense. That it wouldn't come out that way. So you kind of need like credit to Moffat. I got to give him credit for at least doing an in-universe explanation for why this might be the case, which is the cracks in time,
Yeah.
so that we're literally don't quite have a consistent um, timeline here. So people might be remembering things from another universe or misremembering them, so to speak.
Right.
Which
And
is
because it's an interesting aspect of, like, because they're not all talking about, because these alien invasions somehow aren't in the cultural conversation, like, that makes it easier to forget it.
yeah,
Because it's just too big, your mind can't handle it, so you just kind of focus on is Posh pregnant instead.
yeah.
Right. And I can
There's
certainly believe that more now in 2022, when like a large percentage of America is just like denying reality. Pick your poison, like climate change, January 6th, whatever. Like, people are just sort of willfully blind to a lot of things.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a story to be written here probably. And I wouldn't want to get too political, but it is like I think you could plug in your Doctor Who conspiracy theory to this idea that
Mm.
could resonate to the current moment. I think there's a story perhaps in the next season that we could talk about with this sort of mass, not hallucination, but sort of a mass self fooling or self
Mm.
um uh you know what I mean, like you're just kind of everyone fooling themselves en masse that this thing didn't happen when it really did, and it had applying that to sort of an alien invasion would be very
Mm.
clever and very
Are you
Doctor Who.
you're thinking of Last of the Time Lords? Is that we're talking about the missing year and all that?
Well, that again, that's an in universe explanation, but
Mm.
I'd be more
Mm.
like the population of Earth being very willing to forget about this particular
Mm.
thing because it's convenient from
Mm.
a would go against my beliefs if it did happen kind of thing. Um,
Speaking of being
and I think that I'll just say I think that's an
Mhm.
apolitical point, because I think there are certainly um, things that either the right or the left believes that don't necessarily match up with reality that can that this applies to.
Mm.
And you could do it in such a way that you don't have to make an overtly political point out of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of willfully blind, let's talk briefly about Wilf, and who is kind of conspicuous by his absence
That's
here,
true.
right? Because he was retconned. He appears in. Is he in the Christmas? No, he's in Voyage of the Damned,
Yes, that's right.
and he's retconned to be Donna's grandfather. After
Indeed.
that, now Donna's father is in the Runaway Bride. The actor unfortunately died shortly after.
Yeah,
Um, but Wilf isn't here at all. I can't.
yeah.
Do you remember if was there an in-universe explanation for why he wasn't at the wedding?
If there is, I've forgotten it. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
I all kind of wonder almost, do they want to like create a Runaway Bride special edition with sort of an
Wilf.
insert scene with Wilf at the church or the reception, and
Oh,
it might come across as a little bit like the version of Godzilla with Raymond Burr, where people
wow,
are
that's a deep cut. I love it.
the deepest.
I just got a little pang for Bernard Cribbins again.
Yeah,
Like, what a way to
big
salute
loss.
him would be to insert that. Um, yeah. I'm looking kind of briefly online. I don't see any in-universe explanation, but I feel like there must have been a line at some point where he's like, oh, I didn't want to see him marrying that Lance. Just sort of feels like an RTD thing to do, to throw it in there. But yeah, he was
but I had
never
my
intended.
ankle issue, or whatever.
But it's a great example of how Doctor Who is flexible enough you can do these things. You can kind of retcon a little bit. You can bring Donna back as a companion, and bring Wilf back from Voyage of the Damned, and bring them together. Like it was malleable enough for RTD to do that, which is really definitely speaks well of the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Bernard Cribbins, I mean, it would have been an interesting alternate universe, which they began to film, I guess, with Howard Atfield. That was the actor, right, who played Donna's father.
Yeah,
because they actually began to film some scenes for Partners in Crime, I guess, with him, and they're on the DVD. And then they brought in Bernard Cribbins. So you get a taste of that here. He doesn't get a lot to do. But would it make a lot of difference in Donna's arc? Probably not. I guess
you do get the sense that Wilf was kind of activated by, to the point of what we were just talking about before. Wilf kind of feels like the only man in London who's actually noticing that all of these alien invasions are happening.
Right.
He's just actually paying attention. So maybe, this is sort of the episode that kind of activates it, gets him start stargazing, and then actually meets the Doctor. So yeah, here we go with our own headcanon, right?
Yeah, maybe that's why he was still in London. Everyone left but him, because he heard from his granddaughter that, hey, if anything happens, this guy's going to turn up and deal with it.
yeah, absolutely. So should we talk about it in What If the Evil Plot Succeeded? Or I'm giving you the option here, Pete. Do you want to turn left, or do you want to turn right at this point? Do we talk about turn left here, or do we wait for the 4 questions?
Let's wait for the 4 questions, but I don't know if we have to wait,
because
I think it's time to turn left into those 4 questions. And I speak, of course, of the 4 questions to Doomsday.
Yes.
We need to answer them. The first one, which we've already really answered because it came up. Why did the randomizer take us here?
Well, yes, it is Ten and Donna and RTD are all returning. We added a few during the show, which was kind of interesting that I now can't even remember. But I did also want to add that we see the TARDIS taking off upwards at the end, which is what it does at the end of Fury from the Deep.
Yeah, that's like post. He makes it snow, and then that's true.
The TARDIS sort of disappears and then shoots straight up.
Yeah,
which is Fury from the Deepish. Now we know.
Well, I was thinking like before we found the connection between Loss of Companion episodes.
Yes, that was the other one. Yeah,
that's I think the main reason. But before we got to that one, I thought the time flight is also a secret from the beginning of history almost episode, because they go back to Jurassic World and the Xerafen have been there, and there's a Concorde buried under Heathrow Airport, and this one is kind of that done right. You know?
It's going from we've been here for millions of years, Doctor, to we've been here for billions of years, Doctor. Like,
In fact, the Earth is based on us, on our ship.
Yeah,
so
no, we got there first.
Take that, Xerafen.
The Ragnos are the ultimate hipsters. They were Earth before it was cool.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Yes. So many randomizer reasons, but let's get to the second question.
The second question being, what if the evil plot had succeeded? And this is not as straightforward as it sounds.
So the question is this the only time in Doctor Who history where the show has actually answered the question of what is the evil plot?
Well, has it, though? You're talking about turn left.
I'm talking about turn left.
So, go on.
What happens in turn left? Let's just remind the listeners who may not be as obsessive Whovians if we are. In Turn Left, the entire episode is an alternate universe where the Doctor dies and doesn't
Right.
regenerate during the events of the Runaway Bride.
The thing is, though, the evil plot doesn't succeed there because he still succeeds in killing the Rachnos. Like the Rachnos
Yeah.
die and are stopped. It's just that he, because of whatever he was doing, which appeared to be staring into the distance of that tube, he just keeps on doing it instead of Donna convincing him to leave. So that he dies too.
I think
weird.
it's a slightly different outcome, isn't it? That wasn't he on the Ragnos ship, the Empress's ship, like that? That's how and then the ship crashes and he was on board.
Oh
and
no, I
they
think he just
take his
drowns.
corpse away.
I remember
he
like
drowns.
I think so. Could be wrong. I
I
think he
don't think
just drowns.
there's ever any explanation of like why he didn't regenerate in that
Well,
situation.
which I don't mind. Again, I've gone on record. I don't like where the New Who went with regard to Time Lords and regeneration and essentially making them unkillable. I always felt that the Doctor was not invincible and that if he was straight up murdered by a gun or whatever, he might not regenerate. It even says this is when he's the fifth Doctor, like, and he's regenerated into Colin Baker. He says he might regenerate. He's not relying on it. Like he might die. Like in other words, like regeneration, it kind of works, but like I think if the damage is bad enough, you would just die. Also, like if you're killed and regenerate, like it's like the whole Matt Smith thing. If you're killed again and again and you're killed mid regeneration, I mean, surely that's death, right? You said they kind of confirmed there, yes, it is. So I don't like this where they went, where it's like, oh, even if there's like a single cell or whatever, you can still resurrect. I don't know if they've said that exactly, but that seems to be the implication from the whole arc with Missy in the vault.
Yeah, the law around regeneration changes more often than we realize, and it can be changed in retrospect, which we saw with the Stolen Earth, right? Where we found out, we only find out in the time of the Doctor that actually counted as a regeneration. You know, where
Yes.
Tennant regenerates into himself, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we should probably not talk about this too long because I feel like maybe regeneration law is about to change again, or like we're going to get a new example.
Well, I guess
at the end of this day.
my point mainly is that for the evil plot to succeed, the Arachnos have to win, and so there has to be something that happens prior to the Thames getting flooded that helps them win. So maybe his whole remote control thing doesn't work. They capture or kill the Doctor. He can't turn the tables on them. So the Arachnos emerge, right? And so they're there to enslave the planet. Here's the thing, though. Here's the twist. We know Harold Saxon is prime minister. So, no, actually, he's not prime minister yet. Excuse me. My bad. He's actually a minister of some. He's there. Anyway, orders from Mr. Saxon.
Presumably a minister of defense. Yeah.
Right. So the master's here. So if the Rachnos come out, what's he going to do? Is he going to stop them? And no, this is my planet to invade. And if they've killed the Doctor, would that drive him kind of nuts? And like, because he's the guy who wants, he's the guy who wants to kill the Doctor. Or if you go down the Missy route, they're really friends and all that other stuff. So. And at the same time, if the Doctor's dead, he can't go forward in time to release the Master at the end of Series 3, right?
Yes.
From his fob watch. So if all that, like, basically, this is a whole paradox on a bunch of levels. If the Doctor actually dies, so I think you have to assume he doesn't die. But if the Rachnos win, then it's the Doctor and the Master versus the Rachnos, and it's a whole different Series 3.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that makes the events a fixed point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, is it ever explained in Turn Left, like why Donna goes back to this particular point in her sort of, because it is revealed to be a spoiler alert, a hallucination, right? Turn Left, or
no, not necessarily.
Like,
no.
She's getting a view into an alternate universe.
Yeah, and my impression was that universe was briefly created, but she was able to resist the time spider or whatever was on her back.
Right.
And
Because she
but
makes
that
contact with Rose in that
yeah, and
other
that's
universe.
all
Yeah.
very real.
Mm.
So it happens. It's just that it doesn't. It doesn't. So like basically an alternate timeline's created and then is snuffed out
Right.
in the Doctor Who. So it wasn't. It was more than a hallucination.
Right. Right.
But they reveal that if she turns left or if she turns right, I forget which it is now. But I think if she turns right, basically she doesn't get her job at HC Clements, which is where she's working here, and
Yeah.
she instead has sort of a local life, and we see what happens there with Britain getting ruined because the Doctor dies in this episode in that version of it.
Which then has the knock-on effect of he's not there to save Buckingham Palace from
Right.
the Titanic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then it becomes fascist Britain and
yeah.
just bad times
God.
all around.
I love Turn Left so much. It really is in my top 10 few episodes. I love that they.
Oh,
they
slow
did that.
down. We're talking about the Runaway Bride. Oh, back.
I know.
Back here. So
I
anyway,
know.
that's my version of the evil plot had succeeded is that series 3 is totally different and it's a Doctor Master team up against the Rachnos. But
I like it.
maybe he doesn't recognize that he's the master. So that's still a big reveal, and then he has to go back to the end of the universe to find out, to investigate what happened, and he realizes he created the master, essentially.
Maybe it's a Dr. Derek Jacobi master team up.
Wow, love it.
We've always wanted more of that master who we saw on screen for 5
Yeah,
minutes.
and he's done some big finishes, I understand.
He has, yeah.
I haven't listened to them, so I have no idea how they explain it because it's so weird because he didn't even know he was the master until the Fob Watch. But I guess we have to presume that there were times before that he emerged for a while as the master and then went back. But
yeah, and Derek Jacobi is totally the perfect actor to play both sides of that. I mean, we definitely saw that. What a guy. Yeah, I like that, and it we do have to deal with the Harold Saxon issue, which I'm dealing with the third question.
The third question being, where's the Clara splinter? Because as we all know, Clara Oswald was splintered throughout the Doctor's timeline in the name of the Doctor, and turned a lot of the defeats into victories.
So I think that she is here somehow slowing Harold Saxon's progress towards becoming Prime Minister. Or distracting him, or maybe even briefly placing his personality in a fob watch, so that he doesn't kind of unleash hell. And maybe he does just think he's a defense minister for a while, until he finds his fob watch again. But just stopping Harold Saxon for just long enough until the Doctor can deal with the Ragnos, keep him out of the way.
Yeah, I like that. I see two possibilities here. One is that she was a wedding planner with Donna and Lance and made sure they got a DJ with a really kick-ass sound system because they don't want a band. Don't get a band. Bands are out. You want a DJ, and this guy's amazing. He's got huge woofers. It's going to be awesome. You will be, dancing and digging it into the depths of the night, and they're like, okay, well, we'll pay the extra for this amazing sound system.
I love it. Yeah, we didn't mention. We said we were going to talk about the Sonic because that's another connection of why the randomizer brought us here. Beginning of the Sonic non-Sonic episode, very very heavy Sonic episode, and that is a wonderful scene. I really like that so much more the second time round. The Doctor basically he has that great line of like, don't. If you're trying to defeat me, don't corner a man with a sonic screwdriver and a sound system. And then he connects the two. Everyone covers their ears. And
it basically turns it into a sonic weapon. Luckily, the Santas were perfectly positioned, and nobody was in that field of arc of fire for that.
Another connection with Fury from the Deep there, right?
True.
Sound being used to defeat the monster. Yes.
All right. I have to get
Always have your Sonic with you, people.
The only other thing is that, maybe she busts open a bunch of fire hydrants at the end to re-flood the Thames. Because it's like they kind of leave it dry at the end there, that the river is gone. It's like, okay. Maybe someone needs to
look,
fix that there.
we spent all those billions on the Thames barrier, and now now we don't have a Thames. Oh my god. Yeah, that's super weird.
Yeah.
It is weird that that's sort of not dealt with. Maybe they're just sort of assuming like, oh, climate change, the Thames will come right back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is someone does need to travel around in time and clean up after the Doctor's mess. So this is a great way for Clara to do it. She can reflood the Thames.
Well, it is one of those things where, like, oh, I see. Here's how we deal with rising sea levels. We just drill a hole to the center of the Earth, and pull up the drain every now and then. It's like, it's all good. No
Sure.
problem.
Yeah,
Keep pumping that CO2, guys. It's all
Next
we can
time
deal.
I interview a climate scientist, I'll be like, "Have you thought of this?"
All right.
Maybe. Anyway, all right. The fourth question.
Fourth question, the only question, the one we have all been waiting for. What is the rating of this episode? And we have a new rating within our rating system. So could be a Dalek, which means it is good. Could be an Ogron, which means it is perhaps not so good. And of course, our category for the best ever is Viscount Banger, which
came
is
to us from Lala Ward's father. Yeah.
Title of Lala Ward's father. But just last week, we have come up with a new rating called the Professor Hater.
Yes.
And what is that again, Chris?
I define that as an episode that's really, really bad, but you learn something from how bad it is. And you kind of enjoy it. Not quite so bad it's good, but it's like you hate it, but you learn from it. Even if you're only learning about what Doctor Who shouldn't be, you're still learning. So
Hater's gonna learn.
Hater's gonna learn. Yeah, that's a very good description of it. I think this is definitely not a Professor Hater.
No,
it's probably not a Viscount Banger. I think on first viewing I would have said Ogron. Just because I really in 2006 I was just like I think I just sort of headcanoned the appearance of Donna in the TARDIS so much that I was expecting more from that. And kind of the whole Ragnos thing, it just seemed so cliched at the time.
Dangers of headcanon.
I know, but dangers of high expectations after a long sort of season-long wait. I'm talking about actual year seasons, not Doctor Who seasons. But from whenever I saw Doomsday to Christmas Day 2006, like I was probably thinking about it many
Doomsday
times.
was such a peak. I mean, in so many ways, and we'll get to that when we get to that.
But I'm upgrading it now. I'm going to say this is a Dalek. It's a very Christmassy Dalek. It's got a Christmas sweater on, but it's actually it's sweating a little bit because it's put the sweater on in the middle of July. So it's kind of a sweaty Christmassy Dalek.
Yeah. It's a Dalek. It's a Dalek, no question. It's not a Viscount Banger, although I was tempted. My son Jack loved it. He said it was a supreme Dalek. I'd almost be willing to go that far. I would say it's kind of one of those Black Commander Daleks from the Hartnell days. It's definitely better than your average Dalek. It's super fun. Makes for great family viewing, as I found out the second time around. Because I have a family now. The second time around, and it was just super highly enjoyable. And again, seeing the seeds of the Tennant Tate pairing, which I think history and certainly I have judged to be one of the best, if not the best, in all of New Who, was just such a delight. It was just such a delight to come back, and I honestly can't wait to see those specials, however many there are.
There's an interesting thing that happens when a showrunner's run is over. You sort of like you look back on them, on their content more kindly, right? I think a lot of the concern in 2006 is, where is Davies going with this? Is he taking Doctor Who in a direction that is going to be, it's going to be undragbackable? It's changing it too much. When the first, as we know it now, the first RTD era ended, I think that we judged it a lot more kindly. Same happened with Moffat. I feel like the same is about to happen with Chris Chibnall. Once we've seen the power of the Doctor, then his run is over, and we can look at it all, and we can kind of experience it for a second time.
And we've already started to do that a little bit here with the
yeah.
Rosa and the Witchfinders, which both of which
Exactly.
we thought, hey, better than you remember. You know?
For sure.
So
And I think that's going to keep happening. So, yeah, it's a very encouraging sign that this became a Dalek for me, and that it read better to both of us next time and the second time, and it just we've got such a wealth of new Who to look forward to on Pull to Open.
yeah.
That it's encouraging that everything that we've done so far has improved. On another viewing, and maybe we'll even Fear Her.
Unlikely.
Yeah, maybe not. I've taken it too far.
We'll see. Again, we got to approach these with an open mind. So let's not be too harsh. But we're going to have to close the book on Christmas at some point because again, it's Halloween, and. But we also need to take our costumes and get them into the TARDIS and start activating the randomizer so that we know where we're going next.
That's right. I'm walking into the TARDIS. I'm sticking one foot up on the console while pulling the handbrake and bashing it with the hammer with the other. And the hammer that we use is our thing that we call the randomizer, and it has two components. It has the codex and the executor. Pete, you're looking at the codex, yes?
I've got it right in front of me. The codex. Every single televised episode of Doctor Who in not random order. It's in sequential order, but the random element we will introduce with random.org, the executor.
Which is what I've got here right now. Random.org is a website that uses atmospheric noise, which is very Doctor Who-ish as opposed to computers, which are pseudo-random. They numbers are generated in predictable fashion using algorithms. Pete, this is a kind of a bittersweet moment. I'm about to type into random.org the number 301 for the last ever time.
That's right.
Every time we do this from now on, it will be 302 or more.
Yep. Oh
because
my.
Power of the Doctor will be our 302nd episode. So I'm entering one.
It's been a while, like this has been ticking up ever since we started this podcast a little bit. I think only the last 4 have been added ever since we started this podcast at the very end of 2019.
Yes.
We've only had like 4 episodes. Can this be right?
Well, yeah, we got
no, wait, we were doing no. Sorry, that was right before Spyfall. I'm sorry because we did do Spyfall so that we've done series 12 in real time. I forgot.
Yes.
But we really didn't start the random era until after series 12. So in the sort of what we might think of as the proper era of Pull to Open, we've really only had 4, now 5 episodes coming tonight.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be so wild. We're going to have so much to discuss next time. But before then, we've got to figure out where we're going. And Pete, do you have a challenge for the randomizer?
I do. As we were talking about Tennant and Tate and this great first taste of them, here's what I want. I don't want to spoil. I don't want to get tired of them. I don't want to spoil like my taste of that pairing. So really, I'm going to make it easy on the randomizer this week. Take me to anything that doesn't have Tennant and Tate, or I would even say no Tennant either. Like give me anything but Tennant, and certainly not a Tennant and Tate episode.
Wow!
Because I want to save those. I want to save those for when they're back.
Interesting. I almost want to challenge the randomizer to take us to turn left. I almost want to stock up all my chips on that one square.
You've been playing roulette too much with the randomizer lately. Like what did you say last time? You did a similar thing, didn't you?
After Time Flight?
Or maybe what did the one before that? I don't know.
The one before that, I said take us to an episode with Victorians in it, which I'm still waiting for the right. If the randomizer is on its usual schedule, it's going to give us an episode with Victorians in this time.
Yeah. Or Victoria.
Or Victoria.
I challenged after.
Yes.
After the committee.
Yeah. How about something else with a wedding?
Oh, there's not that many of those, are there?
Yeah, it could be the wedding of River Song. Could be, it could be where Donna gets married again in. Well, obviously we can't do Silence in the Library, but it could be Donna getting married again in at the end in at the end of Tennant's run, right?
Oh, you know what you could do the Aztecs, because even though there's not a wedding, the doctor gets betrothed to, I
Yes.
forget, is it Cameca? I think it's Cameca in that episode. So there you go.
Yes, give us a wedding or a betrothal.
Yeah, love it. Love it. All right.
All right, feeling confident. You want to
Fire
count
this
me down?
baby up. Yeah. Boom. Happening in 4, 3, 2, 1.
Unstable!
164.
Oh, this is on the cusp between.
Yeah. We know.
OMG! You just
Yeah.
took us to Dalek.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
It's our
baby.
first Eccleston.
Our first Eccleston. That's right.
Yes.
We've never gone to Eccleston. He's like the one doctor we haven't done, other than, of course, the Yahtzee doctor of Paul McGann.
Paul McGann, yeah.
Yeah, but we've done every other doctor. We've done Hartnell, we've done Troughton, Pertwee, obviously both Bakers, Davison, McCoy, Tennant, Smith, Capaldi, and Whitaker.
Yeah.
But we've never done an Eggleston episode.
It's interesting. The randomers are filling us in before we get to Shooty Gabwa, you know.
Wow, I can't even. I'm not going to say a word about Dalek, because it would just, the floodgates would open. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much to talk about in this episode. So much, like everything from the details. I can't do it, man. I can't start.
The
I will
the
just
writing, Rob Sherman.
based on all
yes,
there's
all of
so
it.
much.
And I love that there's a Dalek watching over your shoulder right now. And it's been there the whole episode. It was Chekhov's Dalek.
You couldn't plan it. Couldn't plan it any better. Wow, way to go, randomizer.
Love it.
This is impressive.
Round of applause. Round of applause. Even though it didn't kind of, it did fulfill your wish.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely no betrothals in Dalek.
No, unless you count DNA merging.
That's kind of a wedding. Yeah,
a little bit.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay, guys. It's been fun talking about Christmas one more time here with the Runaway Bride, but we've got to go. And but we want to say thank you so much for listening. This is, of course, a podcast. It's called Pull to Open. Please subscribe if you haven't already. You can also follow us on social media. We're at TikTok at Pull to Open, Twitter at Pull to Open 63, Instagram also at Pull to Open 63, and wherever else you might find us on YouTube. That's the one. You want to go to YouTube, youtube.com/Pull to Open. You can subscribe there. You can also turn on your notifications to get informed whenever we put up some new content. And we promise to be back next week with some more talking about Dalek. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. I can't wait to discuss it with you all. And enjoy. And we'll see you on the other side of Power of the Doctor.
Take it easy, guys.